Hey, American citizens, I have something to say to you. As voters, if your political party is far more important than the political platform your candidate is running on, or your nation's health and safety, then you will get what you asked for. Because every party out there goes through political changes. One point in time, the Democratic Party had its bigoted ideologies. Another point in time, it's the Republicans. And it will swing back and forth throughout history. But if you're more hooked on your political party than you are on what's right for this country, then what you're going to do is you're going to end up voting for these parties that are in the swing that are looking for the easy way out. Now, what do I mean by the easy way out? The easy way out is a country that does not have to answer to the people. In other words, they're communists, they're fascists, they're like Russia. They will put on the show of being for the people, but they're really not for the people. Okay? They will put on a show of an election like Georgia, but they will do everything they can to make sure no other politician but them or their party gets elected, including getting rid of Democrats that have the right to look over election laws and procedures to make sure that they can arbitrarily throw out any ballot they see fit, whether it is a legitimate ballot or not. So, ask yourself, what is more important? Your political party or America's political system? I'll tell you what, if the Democrats started acting like the Republicans are today, I'd drop them like a rock in a heartbeat. If they started mass voter suppression and voter suppression laws, I would drop them like a heartbeat. I would leave, and if the Republicans stayed this way, I would leave this country to every independent I could frickin' vote for. Green Party. Hell, I'd vote for Mickey Mouse or a poodle. Goofy would be better than any of that. Because the political party to me isn't half as important as the policies these politicians put out there and follow through with. If you've got politicians holding back nominations for the Supreme Court for 8 months just so that they can wait and see if a Republican's going to be voted into office so that they can have a Republican nominee and vote on that, and then when the Republican is in office and Ruth Bader Ginsburg dies, and in weeks there's going to be an election, and they vote on the nomination for that one? Excuse me. That's a party that's full of hypocrites. If you've got a governor or a senator or whatever voting against disaster money for places like Puerto Rico or Texas or even Florida, but then turns around this year when that tornado hit Tennessee and other places, they're hollering, "We want the money!" You've got a damn hypocrite. Get their butt out. Get him out of there. Because things aren't going to get better under him. He's proven who he is. He's a hypocrite. So has Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell showed the hypocrite he is. Even Chuck Grassley has showed his hypocrisy. Gates, all of them, have showed their hypocrisy. When it come time for somebody else to have exactly what they're asking for now, they were against it. But when it comes their time to have their hand out, they've got that hand out. We need to slap that hand away and say enough. You want a country that's run for the people? Then don't vote on a politician that's simply because they're for a political party. Because I will guarantee you, the instant the Republicans see that their policies are not working and their party is dying out, they are going to jump ship. They're either going to go to the independents or the Democrats. And then the Democratic Party will once again change. And the Democrats that don't want them in the party, they're going to jump ship and go to the Republicans or the independents. And so the Republican Party will change again. These people will change parties just the same as you change your underpants, so long as it will get them elected. They don't care. They don't truly care about the party. They only care that they get elected and they can keep on selling their policies. And lie to you. Many of them lying to you about truly what their policies are. Oh, they might say that they're for the lower class and they're going to give tax cuts. But what they mean is we're for the lower class working harder and paying more taxes, but we're going to give the tax breaks to the rich. And that's exactly what the Republicans have done. When they say we're going to give tax breaks to the middle class, they don't mean the lower middle class. They mean those upper middle classes, the ones right on the brink of being rich. That's the middle class they're talking about. You know, right on the brink of that cutoff line that determines whether they're categorized in the classes in a system as middle class or rich. Those that are right on that line, those are the ones they're going to give the tax breaks to. And then all the rich ones up above. Okay? All those people that's down below that line, guess what they're going to get? Little to nothing. So you need to stop. Stop and think. What is more important to you? The political party or your nation? Is your religious rule more important to you or your freedom to worship within your religion as you choose? Because I will guarantee you 100%, as history has proven, if you insist on a country that runs on your religious rules, if that country goes there, whether you believe in what religion they're putting in place or not, your freedoms are going to go bye-bye. We're going to have inquisitions all over again. Witch hunts. Because that's the way it goes. That's the way it was in the Dark Ages. That's the way it'll go in today's age. You will have the church making the rules on what kind of food you can eat, what kind of clothes you can wear, what kind of language you can speak, who you can marry, who you can't marry, whether a woman has any rights or not. Remember, the Bible don't give women any rights. So let's turn this country into a Christian country. Let's see how long a woman has more of a right than to just stay at home, be pregnant, cook for her husband, and clean that house. Because she won't be given any more rights than that. And to bow to her husband. And if she shows any kind of strength, any kind of self-sufficiency, she will be considered a witch. Every woman would have to be determined who they're marrying by who their father or brother deems worthy to marry their daughter. She won't be able to marry who she loves. And some families are going to determine who you marry by how much money they've got. Not by how kind-hearted they are. Not by how hardworking they are. Not by how good of a person they are. They're going to determine the daughter should be married to somebody by how much money they own. Okay? And then on top of that, if you're not married, young ladies, better get used to wearing a habit. Because you're not going to be allowed to be out there dating just anybody you want. You're either going to be demanded to stay at home and take care of your elderly family, or you're going to be in a nunnery. That's the way it's going to go. That's the way it was. That's the way it will be. Now, if you want a country that allows you to worship freely, then you're going to have to accept that there are Jewish religions in this nation. There are Muslim religions in this nation. There are all colors of Christians in this nation. There's Buddhists in this nation. You are going to have to accept that. And you're also going to have to accept the fact that the way I see Christianity isn't the same way you see Christianity. You're going to have to accept that. And you're going to have to allow me to worship as I choose. And if you're going to run a public business, you are going to have to overlook your patrons' religious beliefs and serve them equally. Unless you choose to place your business under a religious business license, not a public one. Because that's the way it is. You cannot push your religion on others just because you own a public business. You can't. As far as vaccine mandates go, we've had that for years, since the beginning of this country. Washington had vaccine mandates. Why? Because it's for the safety and the security of the nation as a whole, not for the individual as they choose. Your religion is for the individual as you choose. How you worship. So long as you're not a radical ISIS type, how you worship, who you love, and how you run your home has no effect on my life. How you interact in public, whether or not you conduct yourself in a safe and healthy manner in public for everyone around you, that has an effect on my life. And therefore can be regulated. If what you're doing in public does not infringe on anybody else's rights, then you have a right to do it. But if it infringes on my rights, then you don't. And if you're walking around out there without a mask and without a vaccine, then you're infringing on my right to be healthy and to be safe. And you should not be allowed to do it. Just the same as if I was out there with some disease and I was coughing on you, or having sex with AIDS and not disclosing it to others, knowing I had AIDS or herpes or whatever. I could be arrested for that because I'm knowingly infecting my sexual partner and not informing them of a health hazard. And that's the same with COVID. If you're out there in public, knowing you're not vaccinated and protected from COVID and could possibly be carrying it without knowing and spreading it, you are putting others in danger. It's a health hazard to everybody in public. And it's not just a mild health hazard. It's a dangerous one. So you shouldn't have the right to do it. Our government should have the right to make laws to stop you from doing that, from endangering others' lives. So stop your boo-hooing. Stop your crying about how your rights are so much more important than anybody else's rights. How your right to endanger your own life should make it so it's the public's right to be put in danger. Because it's not. It's our right to be safe. And stop looking at who you're going to vote simply because of the political party they belong to. Look at who you're going to vote for because of what their political stance is. If their political stance is taking away your public rights to put in place religious rights, then fine. Vote for the idiot if that's what you want to do. But don't be surprised when your rights start disappearing. If you actually want a democracy, then you need to stop voting for these idiots. Because you're going to lose your democracy if you don't. Start demanding better election laws. When you see somebody putting a law in place that hampers somebody else's right to vote, put a stop to it. Don't allow it. Call for it to be stopped. Elect them out of office in any way you can. Because what Georgia is doing is going to take a lot of people's rights, voting rights away. And it's not going to be just Democrats' voting rights. Any area or county or district does not just have Democratic voting citizens. They also have Republicans in them. And when a senator or a governor or an election official goes in there and says, okay, we're getting rid of this many ballots out of this area, they don't know if those ballots, if they're voting Republican or Democrat, unless they open it up. And if it gets to showing that the only votes they're throwing out is Democrats, they can be taken to court. So they have to take out some Republican votes. They have to. Otherwise, it'll look biased. They take out 25,000 Democrat votes They will have to take out at least 10,000 Republican votes. At least. If not more. 15,000. Just so it doesn't look biased. Because they know if they make it look biased, they will be stopped. So that means your vote might be thrown out right along with the others. So don't be thinking, well, they want to throw out Democrat votes. Fine, I don't give a crap. At least we'll win then. No. Because they're going to throw out Republican votes too. And one of those votes just might be yours. So when they're taking away votes from people, they're not just taking them from Democrats. They're taking them from all parties. They're silencing people from all parties. And if you don't care if your vote counts, and you don't care they're doing that, then fine, stop voting. Because your vote won't count anyways. Think about that. I can see having IDs when you vote. But I don't understand why you have to have a special ID when you vote. Your driver's license or state ID, or even your school ID, which is also put in place, determined by whether you're a citizen or not on what school ID you get. And you have to. If I want an American ID, if I want an ID that is not marked as an immigrant ID, then I have to prove I am an American citizen. No doubt about it. If an immigrant comes over here and applies for an ID, his ID is put as temporary and marked as an immigration ID, non-citizen ID. Mine is marked as a citizen ID. I am a citizen of the United States and of Iowa. I am not a foreigner. And I have to prove that. Before I get this card here, I have to prove I'm a citizen. So that they can tell how to classify my ID. If you look, they used to have it on these. Somewhere near the class or something. They would put like a little I or something like that to show that they were an immigrant or it was an international ID. It was not a citizen's ID. Height, eyes, expires, issue, ID number, Barclay, 5DDD. Okay, they've got donor on here and medical alert, and that's where the little red spot is there. And if I wasn't a citizen, they'd have one that would say immigrant or something in red on it, on the side there. So that they knew that you were not a citizen. But I am a citizen. So my ID indicates it. It's my identification card. Indicates I am a citizen. And if it didn't indicate that, then I can't register to vote. You shouldn't have to have a special ID to be able to vote. And no ID out there is good enough to pass federal scrutiny. No ID is. So if an ID that is not valid passes through, it's because somebody wasn't doing their job in making sure IDs passed. And that's why a lot of these businesses hire immigrants. Because they don't do their job. You show them an ID, they're not going to check on it because they don't care. So why don't you think about that? And definitely think about what you want your country to be. And stop voting political party. Because like I said, I would turn on the Democrats in a heartbeat. It would be no harder for me than dropping that. If I seen that the Democrats were becoming more like today's Republicans, I'd be gone. If that's what our people wants for a nation, then that's what our people will get. And I would just sit in my little area and not give a rat's ass. The only problem is my house would probably be taken away from me if the religious sect gets what they want. Because I'm a woman and I own property. And according to the Bible, women aren't supposed to own property. But if that's where you want it to go, say hi to me when I'm homeless on the street, because I will not rent a home and I will not be living in some nunnery. I'd be buying myself a camper or a tent, and I would be living out in the middle of nowhere. Because I'd rather do that than follow your religious rule. I'm a Christian. I love God and I believe in Jesus Christ. I don't believe every word that was written by man in the Bible. Because, excuse me, please, thank you. Man are fallible. God is not. And you can't tell me, well, it was God's hand that wrote it. Yep, God had his hand on them. Put your hand on your child's back and tell them to write a story and expect them to write it exactly as you tell them without any of their own biases or ideals in it. You're not going to get that. No matter how firmly your hand is on that child's shoulder. And God is the Father and we are the children. And every child strays from where a parent thinks that child should be. Every child strays. And it's no different from humanity. So think about that. And think about where you want this nation going.